make sure you know when you're protected. So make sure you know. That's just what you carry. It's a rusty just because you didn't shoot it, you were grabbing the barrel.
Doing here. We've got a few people that want to say some words. I've got a letter from your nephew, David McMurtry. McMurtry, sorry, that I'll be reading. So we've got 3 of us here that want to say something. So come on up and say whoever wants to go first. John's going first.
I'll go first.
Since
I volunteered. I'll go first. Okay, I don't have any organized thoughts in mind here, but I want to say a few things about my history with the club and one of my favorite subjects, of course, model rocketry competition. Gruis has been involved with both of those. So I was sitting here talking to my wife Jackie, and we're trying to remember when I joined SLRA. I think it was in the 1995 time frame, about something like that. And I had seen the notice of the launch in launch windows in the NAR magazine because I had just joined the NAR, and I decided to come to a launch. So I come up to the launch, and you know, they say, "Oh, you got all this paperwork to fill out, you know, but you know, if you join the club, you know, we'll give you a discount on your registration fees." Oh, well, I thought, okay, I'll join the club. So I joined the club. They're right there on the spot in Ellsbury. That was my first encounter with St. Louis Rocketry. Gruis was busy. I don't think he talked to me that day.
This was at Ellsbury.
This is at Ellsbury.
Yeah, you knew I couldn't keep my mouth shut.
However, a few days later, he called me on the phone and said, "Hey, you know, I'd like to welcome you to SLRA, you know, if you want to come to a meeting." I said, "Well, you know, I'm not really into meetings that much." You asked me what my wife's name, you asked me what my wife's name was, you know, you wanted that information. So, you know, I felt quite welcomed by the club at that point. Now, a little bit about competition. So, sometime after that, I had already joined the NAR at that point. That's how I found out about St. Louis Rocketry, was through launch windows in the NAR. But at any rate, I decided that I was going to go to NARM. I had never done competition before, so I figured I'd go to the national competition and try competition. So I did that. At that point, somewhere in there, one of the things Gruis had done was start a club newsletter, and I wrote an article for the club newsletter about my experience at NARM. That article stimulated Tom McAtee. He says, "Hey, you know, this sounds like a lot of fun," and Tom McAtee got a hold of me, and we started doing competitions, and that kind of became part of some of our launches. So that was the beginning of competition, rocket competition in St. Louis Rocketry. Eventually, Tom got tired of being the contest manager, and he managed to convince me to start doing it. And then I hit on the idea, you know, I'd been competing for a couple of years. I said, you know, we really need to have a regional competition. So we had our first regional competition, I think it was at the new polo field. And we decided we were going to do plastic model conversion. Plastic model conversion. Okay, so I recruited Gruis to be the judge for plastic model conversion. Gruis did a great job of judging the models, and then we decided to try flying them. Well, it didn't really go too well. Jeff McCoy showed up with an SR-71 plastic model conversion, and he decided he was going to put the motors in the jet pods on the SR-71. That didn't work too good. several times the model went tumbling end over end. Many times as you're allowed in the competition. We then we wound up going on to. Sorry if I'm going on too long. Just stop me if you. All right. So then we got kicked off at a polo field, which was we did a couple of regionals on the polo field, and we got kicked off at the polo field. And we wound up at Booter Park, and we did future fiction scale modeling, and Ludwig was in on that, and I was in on it. I think Tom McAtee did one. Did you do one? I don't think you did.
Claude did one.
But anyway, that was a successful contest.
Yeah. No.
But at any rate, this is going on. Gruis was the judge for the future fiction contest, and you know he did that quite ably for us. And but along the way, you know, I'm going to regional competitions. You know, I started going to the launch crew competitions. I also went to competitions up in Wayne, Indiana, the Mad Anthony regional competitions. And I was trying to get people to come to St. Louis, participate in our contests. And, you know, so I started talking to people at Narrum and such. And my wife probably never heard any of this. So she's getting an education. But at any rate, a lot of people saying, you know, Buckley, you really want to run regional competitions. You really need to make it a 2-day contest, so it's worth people coming in from out of town to attend the competitions. Also, you got to make it a full 80 weighting factor. And you want to know what weighting factors are? See me after I get done talking. I'll explain to you what weighting factor. You may do a full 80, full bore competition. So around that time, the club decided they're going to do a 2-day launch in Ellsworth.
Mid-America Rocket Festival.
Yeah, that's it. Mid-America Rocket Festival. So I decided, you know, well, this is a golden opportunity. We're going to do a 2-day NAR contest in conjunction with this. Although I think maybe I might have missed the first one. I think it was the second one. Oh, it was the first one. It was the first one. So that was the first October fly. I don't remember what year that was. Anybody remember what year that was? Oh, last year.
2000. This fall of 2000.
Yeah. So that was like.
Not that I remember.
Yeah. So this year, so that was October fly. I think somebody donated a copy of the movie October Fly for October Sky. That's it.
It was the only one to actually take place in October.
Yeah, and, well, no, actually we've had a couple since then, but you know. Yeah, so that was the first instance of October Fly. I think that was in 2000 or 2001, something like that.
It was fall of 2000 was the first one.
Yeah, and I think we had a few people come in from out of town for that. But now this year we had October Fly 11. So this is the 11th incarnation of October Fly. You know, and I worked closely with Gruis on deciding that we're going to do 2-day competitions. And we did a couple more 2-day launches after that, but eventually we got to the point where Gruis said, it's okay, Buckley, go on up there on Sunday, you can run your contest.
One day was enough.
Yeah, one day was enough for Gruis. Now that's not the end of Gruis being involved in competition though. Now, let's see, what year was it that Katie was doing all the competitions? Well, it was Narrum 44. The year of Narrum 44, my daughter, Katie, started doing competition in earnest. She actually wound up winning the National B Division Championship, which is the teenage division. But we wound up going to a lot of competitions. I wound up going to a total of 7 competitions, either opens or regionals that year. But when you're competing, you can only do 4 regionals. So at that point, if I'm going to go to a contest, I'm not going to not fly. So then I said, well, you know, I'm going to compete in team division. So that was the year that Gruis and I formed the first SLRA competition team, Masters of Mayhem. He was more or less a silent partner. I did all the work.
What, John, let's be honest, you didn't want my input. You wanted to do it on your own.
Yeah, well, yeah. But at any rate, you know, so that's one of the, you know, I'm going to quit now and just point out that that's one of Gruis's many accomplishments. Club, you know, he enabled me to be able to pursue competition and allow people to come and compete. This year, October Fly, I mean, we couldn't have it in Ellsbury. We got rained out again, which that's a whole nother story. You know, we've had 11 October Flies. I think maybe 2 of them have actually happened in October because we keep raining and we postpone it. But at any rate, this year was probably one of the best years I've ever seen October Fly. We had 18 participants. We had a total of 18 participants, competition units. The number of actual participants was a little more than that. We had 3 teams. We had 2 A divisioners, which is the youngest division. We had 8 B divisioners, 8 or 9 B divisioners, and 5 C divisioners. So we had a full bore contest. All the divisions were represented, and it was a very successful contest. Fortunately, I had the wisdom this year to make them all low-power events, so we were able to take the competition to Riederer Park and run it there instead of up at Ellsbury this year. So that was kind of important. So for that, thanks Gruis for enabling one of the many aspects of model rocketry competition. So that all.
Excuse me. I'm Rod Riederer. I'm relatively new to the organization. Been here a couple of years, so a lot of you I don't know. I had a 45-minute speech, but being that John took all my lot of time,
Sorry about that.
Sorry. Gruis, if you want to come up here, we just want to recognize you for all the work you did, from being the father of the association.
Everybody have got my foot on the coat. They would do a face palm in.
And I'm relatively new. I don't know all the history too much of whatever all these other gentlemen know, but I know there's a lot of work involved in getting the fields and the launch sites set up, and you had to move several times. I know 3, you know, from Kirkwood to the old site at Ellsbury to the present site we have there now. I know part of the work that you had to do to get go into Glisma and talk to the county parks boards and all the regulations and whatnot that goes with that. And speaking of the FAA, all the rules and regulations and getting you know, all their blessings and everything took a lot of work. So I know some part through the years it took the constant process of what left. How many years? 15 plus, right?
21.
So that's a lot of work and effort, and I'm sure all the older folks know, appreciate what you've done, and then as young guys, Chris or whatever, you know, and just step into what you already built. So in that order, we got a plaque here I'll present to you. I'm going to have to kind of read it. It's dated January 5th, 2013. It's for your service to the St. Louis Rocketry Association and the community it serves. Thank you for your tireless effort in building and leading SLRA. We, the members of the SLRA, are forever grateful for your leadership, guidance, and counsel. Therefore, we, the members of SLRA, hereby appoint Bruce Weidner, President Emeritus SLRA, with all rights, privileges, and honors.
Plaque out, and I'm looking at it, and now I'm feeling it, and this is when Hanson Plaque. This is nice. It's well done, and look at the logo on the top. That's something we're going to cherish. That's fantastic. Thank you. It's great.
And I'll get right on the beamer that Butch and Mike side of that.
Before we let you talk too much, we got a couple more people that want to say something.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm hoping you're going to cut me loose at some point.
Oh yeah, we will.
I will.
Well, we're going to get some
very Buckley.
one of our out-of-town guests, Bob Schapp, came in from Nebraska. Come on up.
Greetings from, I'll just stay here if that's all right. Greetings from sunny Nebraska and Thor, the Heartland Organization of Rocketry. I'm a dual member now, the Heartland Organization of Rocketry. Better known as Thor up there in Omaha.
Okay.
Yes.
And it's in Nebraska, what town?
Omaha.
Omaha, okay.
Although we launch high power in Beatrice, which is in the south central part of the state, have some space out there. But as most of us here being of a certain age, I'm not embarrassed to say I built this little baby in 1972, and it still flies, which is a point of contention that Bruce has always had with me. Build something new. So I went out to the website, and these do fly, guys. They really do.
The Pyramid of Death.
I'm glad you finally built something.
Yes, see? So,
Bob, how many, just not to interrupt, but how many kids do you still have that are kicking around that you haven't built?
oh, there's at least 6 of them down there that are vintage, and then there's a couple more that aren't quite as old, but they're getting to be vintage now. So we'll see how that goes.
How long have I known you?
Well, I into that because it was 1995 or thereabouts when I saw the notice, when I saw one of the club flyers in a hobby shop, and came to a meeting. And I hadn't flown anything in probably about 15 years, and everybody was very welcoming and very understanding. The fact that I was an old-time modeler, none of this high-powered stuff. My show and tell was an Estes V2, one of the big V2s that had one of those characteristic Estes D Katos that kind of trashed the tail cone, and I was asking some advice. And I didn't get kicked out, so I thought that was a really good sign. But
First, what I'm going to note, 1995, that's like 18 years. I'm really an abject failure because 18 years I've been trying to get you to build some of those kids in the
but Bruce, where you've been very successful, and that's what I wanted to bring out here. In 1997, we published our first newsletter, which I still have the postmark. Snail mail newsletter, guys. It's amazing here. And the first issue had a full page from Bruce. And the thrust of it is still what really counts. What got me into rocketry was a new friend I made in school in the 9th grade. He had just moved in and he was an avid rocketeer. He only lived in St. Louis for a year. The next summer the family moved away. I didn't have any fellow rocket builders and flyers that I knew until 1995, when I met up with the SLRA gang and Bruce, and the Bruce's article was not a technical article. It wasn't it wasn't a treatise of any kind. But what comes out of the very end here is, looking back, I know it has been the people I have met that has made rocketry so enjoyable. I have many new friends I didn't have in 1990, which I think we can all say. After all, it was just 2 friends sharing stories and saying, what if? that started SLRA. There will be many friendships that keep it going, and that's what I think could be the best testimony to Gruis, a testimonial, if we continue to nurture those friendships and keep SLRA going in that spirit. That's what's really made it go all these years. And Gruis, I really thank you for your leadership, and not just the leadership, but the inspiration and just the spirit of the thing that's kept it going. Thank you very much.
Well, Bob, I got a medal with everything. It's just the nature of the beast. You kind of took the highlights out of that article. You just took some extra.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's a full page. I wasn't going to.
Is anybody in a hurry on the notes? Can I get you to read the whole thing, because it kind of gives a little bit of insight of where everything started.
It does. It's history, and since you've asked, I'm more than happy. We'll high step through this here. And the title's "Participation is the Key." The opening note: on the occasion of our first newsletter, this column was intentionally written in my usual rambling style to drive Dave Aholt to distraction. So you'll remember this, Dave, right? Yeah. Very well, right? In the summer of 1990, Ron Devine and I, meaning Bruce, shared some stories about our rocketry experiences. This was technically the beginning of what is now the St. Louis Rocketry Association. Just two friends sharing some stories and talking about what if. I know if it was not for this interaction, neither Ron nor I would have gotten back into rocketry as a hobby again. Later, as others joined us here and on trips to Danville, we met people locally and from around the country involved in rocketry. The people we met all offered ideas and encouragement, and we offered the same in return. As our contact with people in rocketry grew, so did our enthusiasm. Just when interest was waning, one of our local members would visit or call the other, and we would get pumped up again. As time went on, I found that when I was going to local, regional, or national launches, I looked forward to seeing the people there. I would see old friends and make new ones. If I flew a rocket, it was important that these people were there to observe my efforts. If I wasn't flying, it seemed meaningful for me to be there and support their activities. When our rockets were successful, we rehashed the good flight and kept the feeling of success going even longer. When we had a failure, there was someone to discuss the problems and solutions with. We now have a broad-spectrum, full-service rocketry organization. We could never have accomplished what we have working as individuals on our own. All that has been accomplished has been through member participation. Participation can mean coming to a launch and helping set up and tear down launch sites. Taking your turn, filling a work shift, building equipment, or attending a meeting is also important. There are other ways to participate, though. If you're one of our high-power flyers and you can come to a model rocket launch or workshop, you may just get the inspiration for your next project. If you turn out to support the other members' efforts, then when you are ready to fly, they will be there to support yours. If you're a model rocket flyer and come to Ellsbury, work a shift as launch control assistant after you fly. You will have the best seat in the house, even if you have to watch all those high-power scratch-built rockets just to get to the good modeling stuff. Every member has something to offer, and as you get to know the other members, they will soon become friends that you look forward to seeing. In the past, members have told me they won't be at a launch because they don't have any rockets ready. Another reason given is, I don't have any model rockets that I can fly in the park. Based on my experience, these flyers may have missed out on a great day to see their friends and enjoy watching them fly their rockets. In one conversation, a member told me he may not come to the launch because his friend, another member, wasn't coming. My response was, it's only a 45-minute drive to spend the day with your other friends. Come on out and support their efforts. As it turned out, he did come to the launch, and he told me later that he had a great time that day. As it is with most things, it is the people involved that inspire us and make rocketry fun. It is the interaction with other people and the variety of thoughts and ideas that keep our interest high. Looking back, I know that it has been the people I have met that has made rocketry so enjoyable for me. I have many new friends I didn't have in 1990. After all, it was just two friends sharing stories and saying, what if? That started SLRA. There will be many friendships that keep it going. And indeed it has. Thank you,
I hadn't heard or read that myself in quite some time, but it's pretty appropriate. I think it still holds.
It's still what it's about, Bruce. It's still what it's about. And you've helped make it that way. And that's why I came from Omaha to say thanks. Let
me just say right now, all the long distance people, I know Marty and Fred and Bob, and there might be others, but these guys came a long way to be here tonight. I don't think that doesn't mean that means a lot to me.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Mr. President and Mr. Prefect.
Marty, would you like to say something?
I will. I'm going to split away from Rocketry for a second, although we'll get back there in a minute. For those who don't know me, I'm Marty Beck. I came here to the Air Force in '99. That was my first meeting with Gruis, probably Ellsbury, if I remember right.
It was at the first International Rocket Festival in 2000.
At that time, I'd come from Georgia, and all I did there were models. That's all we did at the time. And Gruis was always, when are you going to step it up? When are you going to pep this? Let's pep it up a little bit, you know. And it took a few years, but I got there. We'll get there in a minute too.
You got your way.
We'll get there in a minute too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, in 2006, we decided, me being on the Air Force Base, that maybe during one of their air shows, we might be able to launch on base, or at least get on base and show them what we do. Just put some rockets out there. And through some discussions with Gino Cravata, remember Gino?
Yeah,
He said our contact on base was, yeah, I don't have any problem with it, but you got to meet with the fire department, the cops, the airfield manager, and the command post person. Okay, set it up. We'll be there. So they had set the meeting up in base operations, and I met Gruis at the gate. We went in, sat down, and we were around this desk, around this table, and he says, "Okay, what do you got?" And Gruis kind of looked at me, and I'm thinking I'm talking, and I look at Gruis and says, "You're talking." And this guy's like, "Somebody's got to say something." So Gruis took over from there, and found that, you know, the way Gruis does, he just laid it on smooth as deck. And this guy's, you know, he gets done talking, and they go around the room. The base op guy says, "I don't have a problem with it. You know, as long as you stay below my airspace, you're good." He goes to the cops. He says, "I don't have a problem with it." Goes to the command post guy. He says, "I don't have a problem with it." Gets to the assistant fire chief and says, "I don't want you on my base." And my response to him was, "We're not here to find out why we can't be here. We're here to figure out how we can be here." And that's exactly what we said. And he said, "You got to go talk to the fire chief. Tell me where he's at." So we did. We jumped in the car, went down to the fire chief.
Got that part of the story right.
And we went, Gruis goes all through the story again, and he says, "So what are you here for? What do you want to do?" And I think the response was, we want to get kids involved in science, math, and technology.
You said, tell them about the kids. You were prompted a little bit about the kids. And the fire chief was a military guy.
Yeah.
The assistant fire chief said, "I don't want you on my base." He was a civilian, but the military guy. He said, how's this going to help? You know, and you said, tell them about the kids. And I used Mr. Franklin, who was, I don't know how old at that time, but and used you as an example, somebody who we were, you know, influencing to become a future scientist at Major wind up working for the Air Force, and you know, inspired people to technical fields and whatnot. And you know, his question was, how does this apply to the Air Force? And I'm thinking, last time I saw an F-16, it had missiles on the side of it, you know.
Well, to his credit, once you guys started talking, he said, "I don't have any problem with it." So in 2006, we got a 30-minute launch window for those that weren't there. And we actually got to fly rockets on base, which I would venture to say there's very few Rocketeers can say that, especially from the middle of the runway. But the next year, we got to fly for an hour, if I remember, 2007. They said you can fly as many rockets as you want in an hour, which was probably unheard of because rockets and airplanes, they don't always get along together. But we were way away. So that's the story about the getting onto the base. But let's get back to the high power stuff. You know, Gruis has always encouraged me all through my levels. I did achieve my level 3 some years ago. Dan was there and that it's a milestone for anybody. It hasn't done it or has. But Gruis was always there to let me know when it was going to happen. That was what made it happen. But he was kind enough to review my package and everything, and I appreciate it. I don't know how much. But really, what I want to close with is really the legacy. If you look around this room, and you start adding up later levels, I would venture to say it's up there in the multi-digits. The multi-digit levels that you have. This is all part of your legacy. That's what I want to do.
Thank you. Marty, a little bit of that story, you know, as time goes by, what he did is he said we decided to go over to Scott Air Force Base, but well, Marty decided that we needed to go to Scott Air Force Base and kind of said, Bruce, can we make this happen? And I said, I don't know, we'll try, you know. So I put it up at a meeting, and everybody said, yeah, let's try it. So then he gets back to me and he told me about that. You have to meet with this person, that person, the other person, but he didn't tell me this. He just said meet me over there at 1 o'clock. Because we needed to have to talk to the airfield manager. That's who I thought. I thought Marty and I were going to have a 2-on-1 against the air. And we met Gino, who was a sergeant at the time, and he was in charge of the event. So we met with him first, and I'm on an air base, and I wasn't in the military to begin with, so I know very little about it. I think I was on a Army base when I was in Boy Scout. Anyway, we're kind of being escorted around, and there's kind of almost a certain decorum or a certain regiment that goes on there, and obviously these guys are long-term, you know, Air Force people, and so I'm just kind of following along. So we had a little brief talk with Gino, and he takes us over to the air boss, base ops, where the field manager is, or whatever. And so he said, yeah, you know, going back, and so I'm following, you know, here's Gino, and then Marty, and I'm just following him with it. And then we go down, and he turns to the left. And as we turn to the left, and go into this office, the air boss's office, somebody says, you know, I guess it was Gino, said, we need more chairs. And I'm looking around, and there's like 6 chairs there. And I'm going, there's 3 of us and 1 of him, and then what's 4 chairs? What do we need more chairs for? So with that, I turn around, and here came the rest of them. There was the explosive, the ordnance guy, and the assistant fire chief. And, you know, all of a sudden, I'm sitting in the chair, and Marty's over there. I'm sitting in the chair, and I've got 7 pairs of eyes staring at me. And the explosive one, the ordnance officer's going, what? What's the classification I'm looking for? 1.4. Yeah, 1.4. Oh, DOT 1.4. He says, this is DOT 1.4. And he goes, oh, no. I don't know how I'm ever going to get past that. And the air boss is, the fire chief has said, not on my lot. You know, you're not getting in there. And so I'm gonna mention that Marty kind of said that I kind of finagled through that, and you know, but he's leaving out the part that he did, because we never made it through that mess without Marty. And you know, Marty knew how to work the system, and Marty worked the system. Besides that, I guess he was, you know, the chief master sergeant. He was about, how many were on the base at that time? Just 1?
Oh, no, there's about, on that base, it's about 200.
Chief master sergeant? Oh. Yeah, but at any rate, he commanded enough respect around there to the point where actually I made my job easy. That was quite a project, though. And you did mention that, you know, I think we determined that that was the first time that anybody had ever flown a high-powered rocket from a military base. They did an incident with some model rockets, but never had that. So that was a first for not only SLRA, but it was a first for the entire U.S. Military services. Thank you. Yeah, no, that was a good project.
I'm going to move on to the letter from your nephew, David. But first, I want to say one thing about the Air Force Base thing and the reams of paperwork that Marty did. He made a blueprint so we could do it again and again, which was great. And made it. I'm not losing no. I tell you what, that was just like, here, we did this last year. Like, okay. I mean, the first year was hell, and after that it was like, okay. And then even them saying, hey, you guys come out this year, and things like that. My claim to fame, although I'm not famous, traffic cone on a skid mark K off of the tarmac at Scott Air Force Base to, is anybody going to tell on me? Our waiver, or what they allowed us, was 2,500 feet. It peaked out 2,501.
Wait, I have to make a phone call.
Yeah.
Plus or minus 5%.
Okay, yeah, exactly. Plus or minus. Okay, I'm going to read this letter from David McMurtry. This is Bruce's nephew, who lives in Colorado. To my dear Uncle Bruce, Bruce stands here in front of you all today because of me. Why would I say that? Why would I say that it is all because of me? Well, it is I that reignited the rocket fuse, no pun intended, for Bruce's now almost 2 decades of SLRA leadership. At that time, past 2 decades, right?
November 15th.
Okay. At that time, I simply had a desire to learn about rockets and start building a few. But my interest soon turned into a passion of Bruce's. That interest of mine turned into something that he and I bonded over. I can remember spending hours in my grandparents' basement as we worked late into the night on our latest and greatest rocket design. I would fly into town with excitement as I would unveil, one by one, all of the rockets I had made at home and that he and I were to fly for the first time. I can remember a few scratch builds that I made that would have gone Cato had it not been for his intervention and suggested design improvements. I look back at those early years and know that those were some of the happiest times I have spent with my Uncle Bruce. He was my mentor and friend, above even being my uncle. I vividly remember our trip to Kansas for LDRS and the maiden voyages of 2 stretch-built rockets. We made the rockets bulletproof with one structural flaw of a fin design which could not withstand the stress of landing. Although with that rocket named Hunter, we went with style over performance. Regardless of the fact that it only has flown one time, it remains a metaphor for the love between a nephew and an uncle. The rocket currently rests in my parents' basement, not to be thrown away because of the reminder of the time I have in my heart. So while I can't be there in person, I would like to have everyone raise a glass, time for a toast, raise a glass of toast to the man who taught me everything I know about rockets, Uncle Bruce. Love from afar, David.
To Uncle Bruce.
Hey, Dan. Oh, Dan.
We got.
Can I say something?
Yes, of course.
You guys probably, I haven't met most of you. I've met some of you a long time ago. My name is David Aholt. This is my son, David. We were with Bruce early on with David McMurtry. And the Weidner family, the Aholt family, go way the heck back to the early 60s at Webster Groves High School when Bruce and I competed over the attention of a young lady by throwing rocks at her window. She's currently married to somebody else. So but anyway, David and my son David became real good friends as we kind of did things together. And when David would come into town, we'd play ping pong together. And Bruce and I would kind of beat up on the two of them until that kind of went the other way. We quit playing ping pong, and at that point in time we started talking rockets. And Bruce was very instrumental in helping David build some rockets early on when he was probably in junior high school. They built a launch controller and all kinds of stuff, you know, some printed circuit boards and fun and stuff like that. And we used to have a ball with David McMurtry and Bruce when they come into town and we shoot rockets together. And therefore, we ended up going to Danville in 91, or 92, I believe. We just determined a few minutes ago, watched some of the first high-powered stuff, and in 92 in the fall, David had built a high-powered rocket with Bruce's guidance, and we shot an H100 motor off, and David was certified with, I signed the ticket, but he had done all the work, and Bruce had overseen the whole thing and made sure it went well. And that was kind of the catalyst to get the idea with him and Ron when they got into that really big time. We met at it was at the library over on, was it Denny's? That's right, it was at Denny's over at Big Ben in 44, and sat there and started talking about the possibilities of starting a club and maybe what the bylaws should consist of. But in the end, it was always Bruce who was pushing the thing the entire time. It was always the guy that was really behind everything and you know, pushing everybody, come on, let's do this, let's do this, let's do this. And so he's influenced a bunch of people for a lot of times, and as it turns out, looks like this has been fun. I'm sorry to say that we haven't kept up with it. Life gets in the way of being able to do everything you want to do. But he's done a great job, and I appreciate all the time we spent with us. Thanks.
My name's Bill Meyer, and how this started out was I didn't like Bruce. he got in the way of my store. I had a convenience store on Manchester Road. He slowed up my midnight crew, didn't clean up nothing, you know, I couldn't get no work done. When he showed up, I wanted to get rid of him. Okay, well, about the time my son was 10 years old, I was putting, he and I trying to get time together. He started shooting rockets in the trees on parks. One day I just happened to mention it to Gruis about that. Next thing I know, we're talking to him about that, and now I got a pass to October Sky movie theater premiere with Gruis. Now my son's tenderfoot in scouting, and Jeff McCoy and Gruis, and I'm getting involved with the scouts. And now my son, one of his first merit badges was space exploration. One in 21 that he had to get to be an Eagle Scout. And also our troop came, one time I got a call and said, we're going to do you guys in the Rocketry. We're having a fall camboree, and could you guys help us with a place to go? We could have that for space exploration. So we did it, and Bruce, always a thorough man, which I found out one time when I asked him what he was complaining about his back at work. I asked him, what was wrong with your back? 8 hours later, I had found out what was wrong with his back. Not his short story.
You heard the short version, did you?
Never asked him again.
I need to interject something here. When I sent the email out and asked people to speak, I said this is not a roast, but I gave specific exemption to that to Bill because, you know, he's Bill.
Okay, so the troop, we were scheduled for about an hour and 15 minutes. The boys ran the shooting, and the Boy Scouts had to go to all different things: how to make a fire, how to tie knots, how to do this and this and that. And we were supposed to have an hour at our place. 3 hours later, and all the other places were wondering where all the Boy Scouts were at, because they were at our location for the whole amount of time. We weren't invited back the second time. But the kids, all the Boy Scouts, remember that night, and it's because of Bruce and Jeff, and I appreciate it. Also, I just saw my son on this video. He's 12 years old. My son is now 25 years old. He just came back from a tour of duty in the Middle East, and one of his first accomplishments is building that rocket, being a member of this club. Also, I want to say one thing too. I always knew Bruce had my back, okay? Which I found out when we were getting ready to launch a rocket. It was going Mach 2. You guys remember that rocket? You could hear it. There's a tape of it going through the sound barrier.
It was Jim Davis flying a minimum diameter.
So Bruce honored me and let me sit at the launch table. So you know how many feet there is away from the launch table and the rocket. And Bruce says, maybe you guys ought to stand up, because this is an experimental rocket and it's going Mach 2. So I started calculating this, and I said I wouldn't get to say, oh, shit, before it went through me. Well, I noticed, I looked around to see where Bruce was at. He was behind that 92 rustic Caprice. You know, so I always knew Bruce had my back. Anyway, again, I want to thank him, thank the troop. You know, we spent 2 days, my troop was spending 2 days up there on the weekend. Very welcome. And whatever troop, Boy Scout troop, got to go to a 2-day rocket launch. I mean, it was just so special. And these kids are now 25 grown men, and they've moved on with their lives, but they still always have that memory. And it's because of you guys and Bruce, and I do appreciate it. Thanks.
Anybody else want to say something?
Just briefly, you know, get Bill's story is correct. What I told is the audience needed to stand up and move behind the cars because this was a dangerous rocket. And Bill's down there at launch control, and he's sitting at the table. And I repeated that several times over the, you know, over the microphone, and we all moved behind the cars and whatnot. And Bill turns around and he says, "Do I need to stand up?" And I said, "Won't make any difference."
bought that one, I got to sit at the table to do that. So that's something special. But I do consider him a friend, and I appreciate it.
Thanks.
I'm going to just do a little bit of a follow-up on what Marty was saying about the level 2 stuff. Because Bruce and I could say, my version is different. You know, those would be longer and more detailed. But we sort of met through the American Flyer Train Organization, because he was a member and he still has that train in his basement. I'm going to sneak and steal one of these days. But I came across a bunch of model rocket stuff from a closing hobby shop. And I knew he was the go-to contact guy that would talk to him about this model rocket stuff. And I was all excited about my own, you know, being a born-again Rocketeer and getting all my little rockets back out again. He takes one look at this stuff and goes, Shaw, you can't make high-power rocket stuff out of this. This is useless. No, McAtee and Scott wanted some of it, but I've got some great kits from the early 70s, mint, that I refused to buy. We gave one to the farmer, but that was another one of Bruce's things. Let's do camaraderie and stuff. But he recruited me. He was great at recruiting. I couldn't get him back at the train club, but he got me in the rocket club.
If you give one of those kits to Bob Schapp over there, you can get back at 20 years unmade.
Safekeeping, yeah.
Keep his rocket kits.
Safe.
So I just started hanging around and going to these things, and exactly what he said. There's so many of you guys that have been around for so long, and your stories are probably always, you know, the same parallel path, where you had, you know, maybe a casual interest, you know, enter the Bruce factor, and we're lifetime members, and that's Bruce. So thank you.
Here.
If you get a chance to check the website out, I always get a kick out of the story of the Crayola that's on the website. Fred, got any kind words to say?
Well, I'm trying to think what I could add. I mean, most everything that's been said has covered a lot of it. The two things that stand out most to me are having been a part of this club and been a part of a few others. One of Bruce's outstanding skills is basically keeping people together, just even when they have completely different interests. So this has been one of those clubs where there's everything from competition NAR to large high power, and that's all managed to stay merged. This is probably one of the only places that I've been around where that's been done, and there's a lot of skill in managing to keep all those people together. The other part that I wanted to bring up was just was motivation. So everybody's hit upon that there's that Bruce has provided different elements of motivation, and I was thinking about some of the projects myself, of the stuff that was motivating me at those times, and you know, a lot of what was motivating me was to try to come up with projects that were safe, but yet would cause Bruce to question them. It's like, well, let's see here. I know this will work, but how about I, put just 2 little outboard motors on there and then light the core motor. I had to call Bruce and talk to him about it a while, and he'd go, but why? Why would you do that? And I go, just because that's because you asked.
Light the outboards forward first and the core motor second.
And the bigger the core motor, the better, as long as we could manage to do it within the reasonable realm of safety. But there was a lot of motivation in that. I had to keep thinking of different ways to try to make it a little bit more edgy, So, any which way.
Fred came up with first. I can't remember the guy that.
So Elmer Price.
Elmer Price, right there it is. Elmer Price came up and visited us once at one of our very first launches at Ellsbury. And the second time he came up was our very first high-power launch up at Ellsbury.
Yep.
And he brought you along.
That's right.
That was the first time I met you.
Yep.
Where did Elmer live?
Columbia.
That's right.
Yeah, we were over in Columbia.
Okay. And that's where Fred was from. So Fred's coming in from Columbia and flying up at Ellsbury when we were the only place in town. There wasn't an operation going in Columbia, so we could come in at Ellsbury, and then Fred moved to Iowa. What town are you in?
Oh, I'm in the Des Moines area, still in.
Des Moines. Yeah. And we still came down at point, more than a couple of times to fly with us. So long distance travel, the long distance flying shows where we met.
It's worth it.
Fred mentioned something that throughout the course of, I'll kind of kick this for a bit. And I've ruffled some feathers over the years, you know, with various people in the rocket group. But it wasn't because I'm just trying to ruffle feathers. It's like anything else, I guess, running the rocket group. And Dave was right. We started out because of my nephew, and then it was Davey over there, and Ron Devine, and the three of us kind of started SLRA. And I might add that I wasn't really, I was saying, I wish somebody would start a club, and you said, well, why don't you start a club? And I said, I'm not a natural born leader. I don't think I can do that. It's not, you know, it's not my DNA. It's, oh yeah, sure, you can do it. That's a cup of tea. So got him to blame for starting the club, but my nephew for getting me back in the Rockets when they changed, you know, into the next. And Ron Devine was integral as the newsletter indicated. But running the group over the last 20 years has been a little bit like herding cats. And I don't mean that in derogatory fashion, it's just the way it is. You know, it's just, and I think I kind of had this theory before the thing started, but you take 100 people and you're going to find at least three people in that 100 people that are just outright screwballs, and you're going to have to deal with it, you know, at various different levels. But by the time we got forming the bylaws, and that came because of the waiver up at Ellsbury. Once we got the field and sites here, all of a sudden, we were an informal club, getting together just, you know, like now, like we are, you know, at Duffys right over there, and we meet, and we talk, and I bring up, well, we ought to start collecting some dues, because we're going to need equipment, and somebody said, well, what equipment do we need right now? Well, we don't need it now, we need it later. Well, I'm not paying any dues for, you know, something I don't, you know, we don't need, so.
That was more than a 2-hour conversation about whether we should have dues or not. The first couple of meetings.
Went on meeting after meeting.
That wasn't his fault.
But at any rate, all of a sudden we started to get, you know, it looked like we were going to get the waiver up at Ellsbury, and we were going to actually move to high power. And we were going to need equipment and whatnot. And all of a sudden, bylaws and the FAA waiver the first Ellsbury launch. You know, one thing led to another, but over the course of time, in short order, you know, within months, Tom McAtee and I guess John, you were involved with Tom, I guess, in this, but I'm not quite sure from the end, but it was close. And Tom was saying, Gruis, you're a Tripoli organization, a Tripoli brief. And Tom said, Gruis is the only game in town. Really, the only other game was in Kansas City, and they were not very, from what I gathered over the years, they weren't very good. They were a bunch of guys that got together, but they really didn't have any organization. It probably is no longer existent. I'm saying, you're the only game in town. We bring in model rocket people. And I really started the organization to be a high-powered, Tripoli perfection. With Tom's, you know, question about can't we, you know, open this up to non-members and model rocket flyers, and I just was in the process. We were refining meeting after meeting. We had about 5 or 6 meetings on bylaws, just trying to, you know, get them approved and modified and refined and stuff. And started collecting some stuff. There's no real reason why we can't include everybody. And so we started an R section. And by the time we finalized the bylaws, we had an R section, and the whole thing was unified. And you got a bunch of different interests. You know, everything from contests to model rocket flying, because people are coming along and they're new and they're just getting started and they don't know anything about high power, or they don't know the budget, or their kids are too little, or whatever. Right up onto the, you know, highest high power flyers. And I think that was what's appropriate about that article in which you said, Fred, and that was the fact that one of the hardest things that I had to do over the years, and to some degree I got cantankerous in the first bit. You know, people wanted to do it their way, and I'd say, no, I want to do it my way, and the reason I wanted to do it my way is because I didn't have to think about it. I knew it was being done where it wasn't going to get us into trouble, and everything was going to go right. It was just one less thing I had to think about. We wound up doing this as a unified group, and if some of you remember, and I'm sure Marty came along, you know, right at the peak. We had many people up there on the road that day in 2000. The other people had mentioned that Mid-American Rocket Festival. And you get 80 cars on the road and probably 160 people there. And we had assistant rain safety people sitting at the rain safety table, and an assistant launch control officer, and a launch control officer, and it all had to be scheduled. And I had to fill in the holes for the schedule, and everybody's doing our shifts and whatnot. But we couldn't have made it as a high-powered group without the model rocket people, and we couldn't have made it as a model rocket group without the high-powered people. That was probably, over the years, one of the toughest things to do. And I've said in jest a couple of times in the last 5 or 6, 7, maybe the last 10 years, the easiest way to get, and there were feuds going on between model rocket people and high-powered people all over the country in all the clubs. You know, it's not going on now, but it was then. And you know, there were AAA professors that were divorcing themselves from model rocket groups and vice versa. And I told a couple of people this, and I said, you know, my way to get, you know, to keep the model rocket people and the high-powered people from getting at each other's throats, and if I had everybody pissed off at me, they wouldn't pay any attention to each other. And I think I did that pretty well. So, but at any rate, in summary, I've got 2 things I almost forgot about this. Within about a year or so after we started this brand, you know, the bylaws, those we finally finalized those in February of 2006. And Mark Hendrickson and I spent a considerable amount of time in probably 2 weeks, of which Mark Hendrickson put in 6 nights over at my dad's house. Probably getting there at about 6 o'clock and leaving at about 11 midnight to get the new relay box and the launch control up to snuff. But at sometime in 2006, I all of a sudden it dawned on me that it really isn't about rockets. It really isn't. And it's not where I started this one. I was just using the technical stuff. I was enjoying the technical stuff. All of a sudden it occurred to me it's not about rockets. And I'm sure this is true of a lot of different clubs and a lot of different, you know, non-rocket related clubs and whatnot. It's all about people. It's what it's really all about. Because there are people that come to the club and they built rockets and flown rockets. And when was the last time you flew a rocket together?
Oh,
been a while.
About 10 years.
And yet you still come to the meetings, probably to see the other people, not me, but you still come to the meetings, right? So, you know, you wind up going to the meetings and you wind up coming to the launches to see your friends. And you know, if you fly rockets, great, it's a pivot point, or, you know, a rally point that everybody rallies around, but it really is about the people. And I look around the room tonight, anyway, and say, what are you, how do you do it? We're a bunch of good friends. And that was really ironic. Did you read that article? Because it said, you know, in the end, I have many more friends than I had, and that was back in 97, than I had when I started SLRA, and now I've got way more than that. In fact, people have got together for my retirement, or whatever you want to call it. It's admirable. And I also want to say that anything that I've done, I could never have done without the help of the membership at large, just take that collectively, but the officers that have worked with me especially. You got people like Hino that did a double duty on secretary. He took the abuse for about 5 or 6 years, left for about 4 years, and then came back for a second dose. You know? And Dan Welling was the equipment officer, and I'm sure that we've had other equipment officers. I'm not going to, you know, Bill Diaz he was our vice president in charge of fund, is what they call Bill, and he did an admirable job. He was always fun to talk to, and everybody kind of wanted to visit with you up at the launch sites, and that's what draws the people to the club, is when people are having a good time. Again, it's more social than anything else. But, Jeff McCoy, another vice president, that again was vice president in charge of fund and handled all the park launches. All I did was show up, the equipment showed up with him, and he ran them and took care of it. I can't think of one officer that served from SLRA that wasn't extremely valuable, and collectively they've been invaluable. So, as I want to do, a round of applause for the membership. A round of applause for the officers, past and present. Got one more thing. I'm going to pass this around, but I hope nobody thinks I'm really crying about beer. This is all just a joke. But running the Rocket Club for 20 years, we'll take it out. And so a couple of weeks ago, I happened to be going through some stuff, and I found an old driver's license dated 1993. And that's very close to the time that I started the Rocket Group. And I want you all to see the toll that this is taking. I want you all to see the toll. Pass that around. Make sure you get it back close. I don't want you to see what you look like before you do this.
Make sure it gets in front of the camera.
Oh, absolutely.
While that's going on, somebody suggested that I do a poll of who's what level and everything in Rocketry. So if you are currently or have ever been a level 1, raise your hand. All right. Level 2. All right. Level 3. So that's done. Rob is going to present to Bruce a gift that everybody kicked in on and everything. So take it away, Rob.
I'm just like being my everybody else. And this won't take long. I've known Bruce.
Look at the picture and then look at me. Make sure you do that comparison.
Since 1995, when I had actually joined Tripoli before I joined the local organization, and out of the blue, I got a call from Bruce saying, "Hey, what do you what's up?" I guess we had.
You didn't know me, and I didn't know you. I got your name on the list, and I wanted to make sure you were welcome.
And as they say, the rest is history. And then I guess Alex was probably about 2 or 3 at the time. Now he's 19. He's been coming to rocket launches since he's been about 3 years old. So
his picture was in issue number 2, but I didn't bring that one with me.
He's still 3 years old.
And I just thinking, I guess the one connecting thread we have, because God knows I wouldn't have known any of these people except for you. So, and I just like to say that, be personally appreciate it.
You're sorry you met me, but you're glad I'm not.
Something like that. Something like that. So,
it's back to my, it's all about the social part theme.
So, like the outset, we chipped in, and it's not rocket related, so I'd like to present this to you.
That's your life. It's not a fight back.
No, it's not.
Is that recovery wine? It's in your lip.
I need to put on glasses? No. Oh my God.
Poor cows eat their best for that.
Besides the Caprice.
I've got a Corvette sitting in the garage. Wow. Nice. That is nice. Thank you. Anybody that participated in this.
Oh, we're gonna see it on.
Yeah, put it on.
Yeah, I did.
Well, Bruce is changing it, if I can say it.
Go for it.
So, Mark Von Hatten, got kind of a different perspective on the club. Actively, relatively active, a few years. Two things that I noted about Bruce and I feel pretty strongly about. First of all, everyone knows anything about model rocketry, our car rocketry. Bruce has probably forgotten more than a lot of us do. And he's given me a lot of good advice over the past couple of years. And the only times I've had any problems have been when I didn't listen. And so very, very good on that. The second thing is a lot of people have talked about how Bruce is kind of a social glue, and I'd like to share with you something that was typical of Bruce, but happened at one of the summer launches at Riederer Park. By the way, the model rocket launches are you can make them a lot of fun, and maybe that's a challenge to make them a lot of fun. Dude, you are stylish. So one of those summer launches, it was kind of hot. Oh, sorry. It was over. But we were launching rockets, having a good time, and this young family shows up. And there was a couple and their two young kids. Too young to be involved in model rocketry yet, but probably a couple of years, right? And could have been, okay, you're here to watch. We're going to launch some rockets, but Bruce took out the time to talk with the family at length about what their interests were, what the club was about, and what the rocketry is about. And I think that's just typical of Bruce, that he's always going out of his way to make people feel welcome. And I'll bet you that in a couple of years you'll see some new club members coming in. So, and just in conclusion, you mentioned that it's not about rocketry, it's about people. Yeah, it is about rocketry, but yeah, it's also about the people. And Bruce is good people. Thank you.
Did you ever see the Jaguar? It's really, really nice. Really nice.
Get a little bit when you're driving your car better.
That's a problem.
Now you have your life back.
Did you see that driver's license?
Yeah.
You see me now.
That's not the age of smile.
The last time I worked on the Corvette was 2006, and I spent 3 days pre-work. And at the end of the 3 days, they finally got the job done. That's been all doing. Finally got it done, and I got it done. I felt like someone would look at me with a rubber hose for my knees. That never happened when I was 40.
Just with that jacket on, just go out there, sit in the car, in the garage, and have a sit.
You just want to make sure he comes back.
Yeah, you have to drive
Put the jacket on, sit in the car, and
sit in the car.
come on over and take a picture of me.
We can eat.
You think his rockets went fast, you should ride in the Corvette.
Have you?
I don't do that anymore. Well, again, thank you for the gift and for the travelers. Some of you traveled great distances to be here tonight. And just thank you for all your support over the years and participation. What a great bunch of friends.
There you go. I think you're on tape.
Really?
Yeah. Anything you want to say to Bruce?
Good job.
Did you have a good evening? And you really enjoyed yourself?
Yes, I did. I enjoy myself right now.
Oh, excellent. We have to be part of this. You can't just be on tape.
Well, no, that's my job, is to be behind the camera.
No, no, no. It's important that you be part of the action.
The nice thing is I get to edit the final product, so.
No.